Most leaders think they have their teams buy in, but what they really have is compliance. And there's a world of difference between the two. You see, compliance is your team actually doing what they're told. However, belief is them owning the mission and the vision like it's their own. And if you feel this gap there in your team, you're not alone. You see, Gallup did a survey and they issued a global report in 2024. And what they found was that only 23% of employees are engaged at work. So that is showing that majority of employees are not engaged. They're just going through the motions. And so, leaders, what do you think? Do you think this is a cause for concern? I really want you to answer that, because I think that this is a root cause of the symptoms you're actually feeling right now, which can look like the lack of participation in meetings or that frustrating lack of proactive ownership. And it's distinct that you are feeling exhausted, like you are pushing a giant boulder uphill all by yourself. I want to welcome everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Finding Freedom Through Confidence. If we haven't met us yet, I'm Tanique Easy, speaker, corporate trainer, facilitator, empowerment coach. And I help organizations train and develop their frontline, whether new or not so new frontline and mid-level managers, so they can stop losing money to turnover, to disengagement, and poor leadership execution. By equipping your frontline and mid-level leaders, managers, with skills to retain talent, drive performance, and deliver ROI using my proprietary MVP framework. And so today we are kicking off a new series, the Leadership Belief Engine, where I'm going to show you 3 roles every leader, especially those in the fast-moving consumer goods and specifically the insurance industries, must master, and the finance industries must master. And so these 3 roles are: as a leader, you're an architect, you draw the blueprint. That's a role that you need to master. You are the engineer who builds trust. And you are also the mechanic who fixes and maintains things before, or even when you see them breaking down, you fix them and then you start to maintain them so that the engine can keep on going. Because here's the thing, each one of these play a critical role in actually powering your team's belief. Here's what I want you to get from early. For those of you who are listening on LinkedIn, you're joining me live on LinkedIn or you're joining me live on YouTube, I want you to go ahead and put in the chat where you're joining us from. Type #live, or if you're watching the replay, #replay, and let us know in the comments sections where or what has been your biggest challenge as a frontline leader, as a mid-level leader, as a director of operations or human resources or learning and development. What has been your biggest challenge? And we will answer those questions and see how we can help, how the MVP framework can help to support those challenges and turning them into solutions. So here's what I want you to get early: that belief doesn't just happen. So belief in your team doesn't just happen. It has to be built intentionally. And so today we're going to be starting out with the architect. So remember, I told you at the start, we have 3 roles that each leader must master. That is the architect, that is the engineer, the architect, and the mechanic, right? And so today we're going to be starting out with the architect. Because no matter if you have the blueprint or let's say that you don't have a blueprint, then you feel like you're just going to be building off a whim. And so first things first, think of an architect. When you think of an architect, the architect doesn't go in and lay the blocks or the bricks. They don't go in and they don't pour the cement, because that's not where they're most valuable. Their value is in putting a blueprint on paper. And so without that drawing, the things don't get built correctly. You can be building, but it's not building correctly. And so mid-level leaders, frontline leaders, directors, you are the same. If you are not drawing the blueprint, your team is just moving bricks around with no finish line in sight. And so if you have ever thought of an architect, if you have driven past any construction site, you will see the list of persons who are involved in the project. And so usually for me, because I'm in real estate as well, and so when I'm driving past these sites, you will see designed by, and you'll have the architect's name. And then you will have the engineers, the name of the engineering company or the engineering team, that they are the one who is responsible for building this blueprint, for taking the structure out of the ground and building according to the blueprint that the architect has produced. And then you have the engineers who come in and they fine-tune things. And when things aren't going so right, they find the problem and they fine-tune it. And so leaders, your company, it has a nice vision statement. They have a vision statement. Your company, it has this wonderful, beautiful vision statement, and it's there in the lobby, posted nicely over the head of the person at the front desk. And as you go throughout the company, depending on how many levels your company are in terms of how many floors they may take up on a building, right? You will probably see it in different spaces. And so it's posted there. But I want you to hear me out. That plaque, that vision statement on the wall, it doesn't build belief by itself. So let's talk about what that looks like in terms of vision versus awareness. Let's look at it in the context of awareness. Because a real vision isn't just some fluffy words. It isn't just some fluffy words that it's there. It is actually what your team needs. The vision statement is there, and it is what your team needs to move forward. And so it has to be both inspiring and concrete. It must connect. It must connect to the larger goals of the company. And so you as a leader, you must connect that with the personal goals of the people on your team. Let me see. I believe we have some persons. Good morning, Lisa. Thank you for being here with us this morning. So happy to have you. Just pausing to welcome in our guests this morning who are joining us live on LinkedIn. And again, if you're joining us live on YouTube, let us know where you're joining us from. And so a real vision isn't some fluffy, inspirational sentence. It has to be both inspiring and it has to be concrete. You see, a vision, it must connect to the larger goal of the organization. And as leaders, I suggest that it's the why. It's the why that guides every single decision, every single task. And so every member of your team has to see a direct connection, this direct line from their work to the ambitious future of the company. And here's how this may play out. Here's how this may play out. You want to ask yourself, are they truly aware of what it means? Does my team members know exactly what this vision means? So let's talk about it practically. Because as we said, it's not something that is fluffy. It's not just an inspirational sentence to be on the wall. So practically, what does this mean? You have to define and communicate this vision relentlessly. So it needs to be showing up in your meetings. So as a leader, as a frontline leader, as a mid-level leader, as a director, when you meet with your team members one-on-one, do you talk about how their role connects with the vision of the organization, connects with the bigger picture of the organization? Are you having this in your conversations? Are you, as a department, setting SMART goals? Because this is where SMART goals come in. As a department, you take that vision and you start creating SMART goals for your department, for your division, based on that wider vision. So your department's goal will be specific, they will be measurable, they will be achievable, they will be relevant, and they will be time bound. And so this is where the bricks now become your blueprint. And so you're breaking down this grand vision into actionable steps that give your team clarity. And as the Japanese Proverbs says, vision without action is a daydream, and action without vision is a nightmare. And so are we creating nightmares? Are we just daydreaming? And so again, it's about explicitly linking their personal work to the vision of the organization. So here's a quick example of what that looks like in reality. Is instead of you saying when you're in your meetings, because I have heard it, I have been in corporate I worked in corporate for a while, and so we hear things like we need to boost customer engagement. That's the rhetoric that is being said. That is what leaders said. We need to boost customer engagement. We need to do this. But let's reframe that. Let's think about the SMART goals. Let's think about how specific we can be. Let's think about how measurable it looks. Let's think about if this is achievable, it's relevant, and it is time bound, and how it connects back to the bigger vision of the organization. And so we can turn this around and we can say something like, to become the most trusted partner in our industry, we will increase customer reply rates by 15% this quarter by rolling out the new feedback system. So we see how specific that is. We notice the measurability of it. It is achievable. Time frame is there, and it is relevant. Because that's the vision. The vision is you want to become the most trusted partner in your industry, because you're partnering with your customers. You're also partnering with the people that are working on your team. And so you see the difference. Do we see the difference here? That the latter is a step toward a shared destiny, a shared vision. So again, as the architect, leaders as the architect, you are creating that vision with your team. So here's the psychology, and it's not just words, because here's what psychology says about this. Here's what psychology says about this. It says that when we do things like these over and over, you aren't just assigning work, you're actually creating a deeper sense of purpose within your team. You are igniting what researchers call emotional contagion. And I did a session on emotional contagion earlier this year. We can go back and we can find that live that we did earlier this year on emotional contagion, and see how it links with this one right now that we're talking about. And so emotional contagion is where one person's emotion and behaviors influence the emotion and behaviors of others. And so we can have negative emotional contagion and we can have positive emotional contagion. So we want to get that clear, because when you're in an organization and someone comes in with a negative energy, their energy rubs off. And the other persons in the room absorbs those energies, take on that energy. When you have positive energy, someone comes in the room and they are smiling and they're happy, and no matter how down you may feel, you're going to start absorbing that energy yourself. You're going to start shrugging off that feeling of not of negativity, and you're going to start seeing more positive things. You're going to start feeling more positive in yourself. And so when we start as leaders, when we start to build the belief, when we start to build that belief in our team, when we start to sharing with them the vision on a regular basis, and sharing with them that here is how you are contributing to your work, your direct work contributes to the greater vision of the organization, to the greater vision of our department, then you're going to start seeing that belief and motivation starts to spread. And it's no longer about your vision, but it becomes our vision. And so this shared purpose makes people more open. It makes people more motivated, and they are ready to bring their best self to the table, their best ideas to the table. They're ready to bring their best self to work. And when they start to bring in their best self to work, because they're seeing the connection, it's not just about the paycheck, but they're seeing themselves within the context of this vision, achieving the vision, then they're going to be ready to bring their best self and their best ideas to the table and to work. So leaders, here's your first move. I want you to revisit the company's vision, and I want you to ask yourself, is it clear? Is it compelling? And most importantly, is it connected? And so the second step is to sit down with your team and map out your department's vision, if you haven't done so already, and ask, how does your role push this vision forward? And as they come up with those answers, you're going to start using those answers to sharpen your department's vision. Because when persons feel like they're a part of something, they start owning it. Because a blueprint that nobody gets is just a piece of paper, but a blueprint that, as the architect, they all become the architect. So you are the chief architect, and they are they are your trainees, so to speak. They are your partners, not even your trainees, they are your partners. So you are the chief and they are the partners in that department. And so a blueprint everyone helps to create is the start of something unbreakable. So again, take a moment and ask yourself, is our vision something the team can quote or just something they occasionally see on the wall? And so if I should come into your organization today and I ask 10 persons or 5 persons on your team how their role connects with the company's vision and department's vision, would their answers align? Would they see that their role connects and how it impacts and influences how they move forward with this vision? And so here's a reframe for you, my leaders. Here's a reframe. It's that as leaders, we are all architects. And the blueprint, again, that nobody understands is a blueprint that will not get, it's something that nobody will use. And so when you have the buy-in from the team, when you have that blueprint, when a blueprint that the whole team, and we're talking about your department now, when your department come together and your team helps to design that department vision, it's like laying bricks that feel like it's a part of a bigger masterpiece. So they're putting the puzzle pieces together. They're laying the bricks. They know which brick goes where. And so that's belief in motion. And here how this unfolds within your team dynamics. You see, mindset is currency. And without belief that you can build something bigger, you won't even put pen to paper. Vision is currency. And your blueprint is the investment that gives direction. And performance is currency. Without the first two, without the mindset and the vision, performance is wasted effort. You're moving, but you're not arriving. And so leaders, here's where my MVP framework comes in. That belief is built through these 3 leadership currencies of mindset, vision, and performance. And so if you're missing one, your leadership bank account is always going to be in the red. So if you're missing the mindset aspect of it, if you're missing the vision aspect of it, and we're talking about the vision piece today, next week we're going to be moving into the mindset aspect, which is the trust, which is more of the belief. So we're going to be moving into that next week. But your bank account will always be in the red. So when you invest in all 3, so when you invest in the mindset aspect of your team, the vision, and the performance, you are creating interest or compound interest in your team's belief. You're compounding that interest. You're not just telling them, but you're actually showing them. You're actually showing them that you believe because you're bringing them to the table and you're allowing them to be a part of building that blueprint and seeing how is it that their direct work connects to the bigger vision. And so today we talked about the architect drawing the blueprint because that's what architects do. Architects draw, they design. And so next week, we'll dive into the engineer because the engineer is the one who builds. And because a blueprint is worthless if it is built on sand. So that's where we learn how engineers vulnerability, right? We talk about the vulnerability-based trust in your culture. Because engineers have to trust the process. They have to build trust within their teams for that building to be strong and sturdy. And so, again, as leaders, you are the three roles that you must master as you grow in your leadership journey as frontline and as mid-level leaders is that you are the architect. You draw the blueprint and you help them to see the direct link between their role and the department's vision as well as the bigger vision of the company. And then you're also the engineer. You build things and you do this with trust. You do this with trust. And then you are also the mechanic where you fix things when they are broken and you also maintain them so that they can keep running as the well-oiled machine that it should be, the well-oiled engine. And so today I want to just say, remember to ask yourself the questions. If I should ask my team members what the vision means to them, or how does their role fit? Do they know how their roles fit? Will they be able to just quote the vision because it's there, or will they be able to identify how their roles fit? Thank you for joining me for another episode on Finding Freedom Through Confidence. Again, we always say confidence is not something you pick up from a supermarket shelf. It is an ever-growing muscle. I will see you next week on another episode of Finding Freedom Through Confidence. Thank you for joining me. Bye for now.